tobacco fields of North Carolina, Jose Manuel Gonzalez is beginning another day of backbreaking work.
Pero cuando se viene el trabajo duro, desde las 5 de la mañana, de las 4 ya andamos en pie. Cuando estamos retirados a las 5:30 y regresar a las 7, 8 de la noche.
Jose's here working to put his 3 kids back in Mexico through school.
No, pues que mis hijos no trabajen como su padre, que agarren otra vida mejor. El otro tiene 5 años, está chiquita. Entonces, voy a descansar hasta que saque adelante ese más chico.
Jose and over 1 million other migrant workers are the lifeblood of America's giant $400 billion agriculture industry. But the hard labour and low pay means few Americans want the work. So it's mostly done by Latinos, Mexican migrants like Jose Manuel.
Back home in the fields, I would talk to the workers.
NADIA Moreno knows all about migrant workers. Her family has toiled in the sun for decades.
I come from a third-generation farm-working family. The first time I went into the fields, it was with my grandpa on a Saturday, and I was around 7 or 8, because Saturdays is when the inspectors don't show up.
What she saw inspired her to take action. She's heading to a training camp where young activists will learn how to protect the rights of farm workers like her parents.
Seeing them struggle and everything made me want to do something better and to continue going to school on to like someday be able to help them and give back to them because they give so much to us.
Growing up in the South, you hear about slavery a lot.
CATHY CROWE is also heading to the program.
You hear about those conditions and they say, okay, and we're done with the plantation system.
The plantations are etched deep in America's psyche. Part legend, part grim reality. Generations have come and gone here, but the hard labour continues.
I went to those fields, and then as we were driving by, some people would point out, well, look, there's still an old plantation, and now we have farm workers who are living in those same exact plantations, in the same structure, the same quality of life, which was just really shocking.
CATHY soon got fired up about the workers' conditions, which most Americans aren't even aware of.
People talk about food justice, but when people talk about food justice, they mean, oh, I want my food to be local and organic. They think about, well, how was the pig treated? How was the pig slaughtered? But they're never like, and how was that worker treated?
You're not employees of SAT, you're not employees of your organization. By law, you are considered volunteers.
CATHY and NADIA are joining college students from around the country. They've given up their summer holidays to volunteer with a group called Student Action with Farm Workers.
Y yo les estaba contando a los muchachos, a veces hasta comida, los invitan que se sienten a comer con ellos.
For the next 2 months, they'll be striving to improve the conditions, health and rights of farm workers.
Something silly like that,
So I think most of us will be doing outreach where the workers live, because they have the right to control that.
Today they're learning about the laws that govern migrant farm workers.
That's illegal.
That's illegal, yeah.
No protective gear for pesticides.
Is there like a maximum number of hours that they can work per day?
No.
The issue that most upsets farm workers is being underpaid by unscrupulous bosses.
Podemos hablar acá. Tenemos información.
To prepare, the students are role-playing how to approach farm workers who are having problems.
Okay, entonces le vamos a dar el número de nosotros.
Gracias por hablar con nosotros.
Si tiene preguntas algo es 8.
And also practicing how they'll react if they're confronted by an angry farmer.
Who are you guys? Who are you with?
The health clinic.
The health clinic.
Yeah, we're just trying
My
to make
workers
sure.
don't need anything from you guys. They're fine. They're healthy. They work every day.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. What are you guys doing here?
No,
We're on our way out.
on the way out and checking up on them.
All right. Yeah, thanks. Better be out.
For Nadia, the exercise brings back childhood memories of her own encounters with outreach workers.
Nobody would talk to them. Like, we would just avoid talking to them because you don't know if they come with legal services or if they're here to check your documentation or anything. So as a farm worker, we like close in on that, and so if they ask us something, we'll be like, but never really talk to them.
For Cathy, that distrust is going to be even harder to overcome.
Spanish isn't my first language. I'm not a farm worker. My parents didn't do farm work, so it's hard, I feel like, to get people to trust me when I come and I say hola and they know I'm not from there. For them to know that I'm not an immigration officer, I'm not a police officer, I'm really just here to help.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best.
The immigration debate is reaching fever pitch in America after the billionaire Donald Trump launched his presidential campaign.
They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Trump's racist speech only adds to decades of stigma, which has taken its toll on many of these students.
Growing up as a migrant, you never really wanted to share that with anybody. You know, it's something you tried to keep away from people because you did want to be that modern American kid. You didn't want to be that outcast.
A lot of those students haven't shared their story outside of their circles, right? Many of them grew up in farm worker communities. They grew up around Latinos. They haven't had to say to an outside group or a diverse group, here's my story.
Growing up near America's southern border, Nadia's family lived in constant fear of immigration checks.
So I didn't really know I was undocumented up until when I was in high school. I live in Hatch, which is 30 minutes away from Cruces, but there's a checkpoint in between. And so we would never go out to the movies or to ice cream with our friends because you had to go to Las Cruces to get there. We never really asked my mom why. It was always just like we would never go.
Nadia has lived most of her life in the USA. But as an undocumented migrant, she has no official status and can't access financial aid or subsidies like her fellow schoolmates. Jose Cisneros is also undocumented and found himself in the same boat.
I got really frustrated when I was looking into colleges and I realized that I was not eligible for in-state tuition for the majority of scholarships and grants. And even though I was the number one student in my class, I was not eligible for any of this.
Nadia was already unpacked in her dorm room when she found out her scholarship was denied. So her parents pulled out the family's savings to pay the first semester's tuition up front.
They're what make me want to move forward, and they're what make me proud. Like, my dad has a 6th grade education, and so does my mom. That's all they were able to do. But he sits on that tractor for 12 hours, and my mom goes out into the fields, and when they come back, I'm like, wow, my parents have the best occupation ever because, regardless of everything, they've been able to give me everything.
Nadia and Jose are lucky. Eventually, they received one of the few scholarships undocumented students can access. Now Jose wants to change the system to give others a chance.
There are thousands of other students, more than 1 million in the US, who want to go to college, who are undocumented, and can't fully obtain what they want.
I think it's on the way to our placement.
As the week's training wraps up, the students start to mentally prepare for their farm visits.
Then it's taxable.
For some, that means thinking about their parents, who've sacrificed so much for them.
I'm not really worried about where I'm gonna go or who I'm gonna confront or who's gonna confront me. I can handle that by myself. But I'm more worried about, I guess, letting them down or not
Not doing enough to repay the debt you feel you owe them.
Yeah, an enormous debt. I feel like that. I think that's what worries me the most.
I returned to North Carolina a month later, on Independence Day. While people are celebrating all the ideals of the American dream, for the nation's farm workers, it's just a day without work or pay, stuck far from the celebrations.
So we're about to do outreach at a pretty big camp. There should be around 28 workers.
Cathy is interning for a local clinic, doing health education.
They're giving us the wrong address.
Sometimes half the battle, though, is just finding the workers' unmarked camps.
We always draw little pictures in their folders to say, okay, you're gonna see a yellow sign and then you're gonna turn onto this long gravel driveway and you may go half a mile down and then you're gonna find the trailer.
We eventually find tonight's camp. Cathy and her colleagues set up for dinner before getting down to business.
Where's the hot sauce? Usually when we first get there, they're very shy. Most of them, it seems like they don't want us to come in, and they're kind of like, why are you here? What's going on? Like, I'm tired, I want to go to bed. But then we start joking with them, we start talking, they're like, oh, okay, you're just people who want to reach out.
Cathy and her fellow intern Lily turn a dry health lecture into a game based on a TV show.
Que es un poco más divertido que practicar página por página de los temas de salud. Y se llama Jeopardy. Por lo típico, ¿cuántas tazas de agua deben de tomar cada hora? I'm usually thinking, do they understand me first? Do they understand the Spanish that I'm saying? A lot of times I'll just repeat myself and they'll be like, okay, I got it.
The game might seem trivial, but it keeps the men engaged.
La pregunta es, ¿cierto o falso? ¿El alcohol es una buena manera para combatir contra la depresión?
Cierto.
They really got into it. This group was like, no, choose that one, choose that one. They got really competitive with each other.
Among the farm workers, I spot Jose Manuel. He seems to be enjoying himself tonight, but the laughter can't hide his loneliness.
Por estar también lejos de la familia, pues, aislado. O sea que, pues, nomás de los files a la casa y los días que salimos de compra a traer el lonche. O sea que nomás vemos los mismos trabajadores, los mismos compañeros y ya se siente uno medio aislado, medio...
I think breaking that isolation is really nice for them, and then a lot of times they'll open up to you during your health assessments. ¿Y cuántas personas están en su familia que son dependientes de usted? You'll ask how many people are in your family, and they want to tell you all their kids' names and if their kids in high school or in college and what they're doing. And ¿Y es diferente aquí?
Sí, es diferente.
You can tell they just want to get to know you and talk about their lives.
200 kilometres away, Nadia has been having similar experiences. Today she's bringing toiletries donated by a local church to a farm workers camp.
Hasta las 6 o 5, dependiendo. Ya me quedo allá adentro.
One of the men, Beto, shows me the room he shares with his cousin. The farm owners are required to provide accommodation for these men. But poor housing is a common complaint. Beto's camp is about as good as it gets, but many farm workers aren't so fortunate.
No, porque cuando estaba chiquita...
I wasn't allowed access to camps with very poor conditions, for fear of antagonising the farm owners and making the situation even worse for the exploited workers. But Nadia has been taking photos at some of the campsites that have upset her.
There's one camp that has 2 toilets for like 25 or 23 workers, and it's just separated by a curtain. And the boys were saying they have 5 showers, but only 2 work. And so they live 4 or 5 to 1 room. There's no air conditioning. sickening to see that somebody would be like, okay, this qualifies for 30 people to live here.
Whatever the living conditions, the work itself can be a health hazard. Jose Manuel and his men are back in the fields picking tobacco leaves, at the risk of getting what's called green tobacco sickness.
What the green tobacco sickness is actual dermal absorption of nicotine from the tobacco plant. Usually green tobacco sickness will present as nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and often rash on the skin.
Jose Manuel has suffered this condition before, which is why he's wearing rubber overalls, while others have garbage bags tied around them as their only protection. But that brings its own dangers in the North Carolina summer. It's only 10 a.m. and already the humidity and heat are soaring.
Every summer we know of farm workers who die of heat stroke, and if they don't die of heat stroke, they experience heat stress.
Our contract is 600,000 pounds.
Cal BERRYHILL is Jose Manuel's boss. He's adamant that none of the farm owners he knows would drive their workers to heat stroke.
I don't see any of that going on here. Yeah, it may be, I'm not aware of it. But we realize that these guys are humans, and you know, they're just like I am. You know, when it gets hot, it's tough work. But I don't know if anyone around here would be so-called a slave driver.
Cal insists migrant workers are absolutely vital for agriculture, but their working conditions remain far worse than other industries.
Why are farm workers treated differently under these labor laws? Why can children work in the fields as young as 10? Why, if you work on a small farm, are you not covered by workers' comp? Why don't farm workers nationwide get overtime protections? Basic labor laws that all of us sort of take for granted.
Here is stoop labor in the literal meaning of the term.
Importing Mexican workers started as an emergency measure during World War II, and already the conditions they faced were extremely harsh.
Those laws were passed in the 30s, and farm workers were either exempt altogether or treated differently, primarily because at that time, overwhelming majority of farm workers were black, were African Americans. It was all about racism. It was about nothing else.
Put my laptop in here.
Jose's already come a long way from his family's humble origins. And today he's working to change the laws, requiring undocumented students to pay more for university than other locals.
I knew so many other students at my school that wanted to go to college, that wanted to do something, be nurses, be teachers, be lawyers, and they just couldn't. So I feel that it's part of my duty as an undocumented student who made it to college to do something positive.
As it turns out, Jose's internship is at North Carolina's General Assembly, where he's lobbying for a new bill.
Basically, the bill would grant undocumented students in this state in-state tuition if they've lived here for more than 3 years. Would you be willing to support something like this?
Jose is trying to get politicians like Representative Howard Hunter to vote for the bill.
Like California, Texas.
I will be supporting something like this.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your support.
No problem.
But others are proving much harder for Jose to persuade.
Even though they do tell us all these types of things in private, they don't publicly come out and support it. So it's just interesting to see how that dynamic works of what they are scared of when it comes to re-election.
Senator Alexander is recognized for a motion.
But Jose's not giving up. He's finding ways to pressure a key senator, and he's hopeful that a federal solution won't be too far away.
I have the feeling and the hope that immigration reform will happen within the next presidency.
Back out in the farmland, it's finally Sunday. The farm workers 1 day off.
Today we have church service for the farm workers. There's
people playing soccer in the back. There's a soccer tournament going on back there. And they'll sit here and eat and talk and just enjoy Mass for the Sunday.
The atmosphere here lifts everyone's spirits.
Nos hemos visto varias veces.
Qué bueno.
Sí, pues es bueno tener compañía.
Sí.
Nadia gets talking to a young worker who's feeling a lot less isolated because he's recently been joined here by his father.
No, y para mí es una felicidad el tenerlo, de verdad.
Ahorita se siente uno raro, eres el extraño del equipo.
El nuevo.
Sí, el nuevo, así de que siempre sí hace falta algo de compañía y qué mejor que será de mi papá, ¿verdad?
The confidence he gets from his dad is something Nadia can relate to.
My parents are like my rock. They're both farm workers, and through them I see everybody else out in the fields, and so that's kind of what pushes me to finish and to not just give up halfway and to continue going to school.
I can hear in your voice you sound a little proud. Are you proud?
Yeah. My mom would always tell us, la vida no es fácil, life isn't easy. And so it was like a little thing that everybody in the field would say, like Doña Silvia says, la vida no es fácil. And so that kind of stuck with me. Like she says, there's always roadblocks, but if you really want to do something, if you really want to fight for something, then you can find new ways to do it.
It's been a life-changing 2 months for Nadia, and now she's found her calling.
I really think I've found what I want to do with social work. I've found my place.
This experience has been profound for all the students. Defying the Trump stereotypes, they're striving to make America better and finding a new self-confidence along the way.
Before I used to think being a farm worker was like the worst thing in the world. It's just something you don't really share with people. You know, you try to avoid talking about that stuff because, I don't know, maybe you think it's embarrassing or you think it's not fantastic work, you know? But now I feel real proud about it. You know, I've been getting such an urgency to like yell it out. Like, yeah, my parents did this, I was there with them, I saw them, I witnessed it. And it's like there's nothing negative about that. It's such an important job. Like farm workers literally feed the world. And like without us, there would be no, I don't know, have you ever had an apple? Like, you're welcome, you know?